Lean is all about eradicating waste and adding value. And value is about what the customer wants to pay for, and everything else which he doesn't want to pay for is an activity which is waste. We started a project with the Milk Supply Association. The project was funded by the Scottish Enterprise through the SAOS scheme, which was market-driven supply chain and knowledge transfer. The project was to find a farm who wanted to actively embrace Lean, and Rory was the pilot.
This is Rory Farm, and it's located in the Machars of Wigtonshire, near a little village called Port William, and we farm dairy cows and pigs. At the time, we were going through particularly difficult market conditions, and I was hoping to remove cost and find efficiency and use a different method, a new method, to improve our business performance.
It took us a little while, maybe a couple of hours, to sort out in our own minds what's the problem we're trying to solve. From that, we then looked at the data for the farm, and then we brought in his team as well. So it's very much Lean's about looking at a problem through different people's eyes, and then we did an activity called a value stream map. And this value stream map highlighted all of the tasks which they did and any pinch points or problems which they had. And from those we then decided these were the top 6 and we put an action plan together.
The most significant thing we implemented from Lean, and perhaps quite unusual, was that we started milking our cows once a day, opposed to regular twice or thrice. We had a large number of cows and we needed to make a system that was more operationally simple. And
the challenge for that there is that you reduce the yield which you have from each of the cows. Now we reckon that might be 15–20% reduction, so therefore to compensate for that in the short term we had to reduce the overhead by that amount of money. So this Lean project's over several years, that in the first place you have to train the cattle to give you the same yield again what you had before, and then to keep the overheads down, and therefore you're going to make a better profit from it.
We also ended up selling a lot of assets that weren't required, that were perhaps considered waste, and we looked at the productivity and output of each person and what they were doing, and tried to understand where we could take out waste, where we were doing things that we didn't need to be doing.
But the savings we projected were in the region of £300,000 per year, but that would be over several years because we have to bring the yield up to what it was before, so it's a longer term project.
The quality of the milk has gone up, so I'm selling a better product for my customer, and at the time there was no oversupply in the market, so we reduced the amount of milk we're selling to the market, which again was customer focused. So there's been lots and lots of benefits.
Being a farmer is a lonely activity, and I think a lot of farmers just paddle their own canoe as such, and they don't really talk to each other or get some good advice. And therefore, if we can give them knowledge or structured problem-solving methodologies, they can do it themselves after the event.
Lean is a really great process, and I think it's imperative that farmers try new things and new ways of looking at their business. It's fundamentally changed our business for the better. But what's most important is to survive in this difficult environment that dairy farmers find themselves in nowadays. We have to have a can-do attitude, a self-help attitude. Specialists like Ray McCready give us a simple and easy format to attack the costs in our business, look where we're inefficient, and try and give us a competitive edge. I would say to all farmers, approach it with an open mind. It'll make you feel uncomfortable, no doubt. You'll go to places you don't particularly enjoy, but you come out the other end having made some good decisions that will benefit you long term, and hopefully give you a chance to be a profitable and strong business in the future. Well, this is for the farmer then. Well, I mean, that little video actually gave you a pretty good summary, so I'm not sure there's much need for me. But what I'm going to tell you about is my story, I suppose, my business. Our business, because my brother and I are in it. So I'm Rory Christie of Rory Farming Company, which was established in '54 by my grandfather and father. And it was particularly successful business. The pig farmers, we had 1,100 sows indoor, and we fed whey, and basically got the feed for free. And when you get feed for free, you make a lot of money. And we also had dairies and poultry. We imported the first broiler chickens in from America in 1954. And so they made a bing of money, basically. I came home in 1995, and we'd already started, we'd peaked, and we're on the way down. Generational change was needing to happen. My grandfather was a brilliant man, but he was ultimately a dictator. And I came home to, at that stage, we had 4 dairies with 600 cows. We were calving all year, really, heifers in the summer to take advantage of milk marketing board seasonality. The problem was the facilities were tired, the output was low, and we had little cash available because things had been starting to change in the business. And there was lots of change in things like BSE and all sorts of livestock disasters occurring, really. So I, being perhaps genetically the way I am, a solution finder, I could see that I needed to increase the output in a cost-effective way because our family had never borrowed money. By the time, I started to rationalise. By the time I got to 2005, I was down to 2 dairies, and I built a rotary milking parlour for 500 cows, and we were pushing on. By the time I got to 2015, I had got it down to 1 dairy, and instead of 500 cows, there was 1,500, milking them twice a day, and I was just about to sell 6 million litres. I had another 1 million litres coming on. But alongside all of this, and I guess what I'm doing is giving you context. In 95, we had 1,100 sows selling 18,000 pigs a year. And the business had been growing, putting more and more pigs on, all the way from 54. Stall ban came in. We were riddled with every disease there was under the sun. But we took advantage of a pig outgoer scheme something they had in Scotland. I'm not sure if it was in the UK. And we reduced to 600 sows, and we reinvested in the sow accommodation. In 2000, my brother came home from university. He went into piggery. He was going to be the pigman. And as long as he worked in there like a slave driver and a slave, we could keep doing pigs, as long as we didn't spend too much money. But in 2011, the problem was, guess what, same again. Facilities were tired, output low, but there was a desire to farm pigs, which was a pretty important driver of decisions. So the solution, we destocked, we closed the existing place, and we built a brand new pig unit, first brand new pig unit in Scotland, certainly, for 200 sows to sell 6,000 pigs a year. And it cost just short of 3 million quid. All of it borrowed. We also had to sort out the succession in the business, the ownership. It was a limited company, and there wasn't just my family in it. So between 5 and 15, we bought out 2 uncles, one non-family, one family that were one bunch of shareholders that weren't family. With 2 sisters and the stepmother. So the business is now owned by my brother and I, and it cost us several million pounds to do that. So anyway, back to dairy and lean. 2015 came along, and it was a bit of a crisis. The dairy market started to crash, and I formed an organisation called the Milk Supply Association, which I'm a founding chairman of a small supply co-op that looks after 150 farmers supplying a French company called Lactalis in the southwest of Scotland. And I knew that the market was collapsing, and I'm always been pragmatic and a realist. At the same time, Lactalis had got a new CEO in the UK, and the company, he was seriously ambitious and wanted to do turnaround, because basically the company wasn't in good order. And he was going to do that, and he was going to bring these pushy farmers, me, into line, regardless of the consequences for the farmers. They wanted to introduce AB milk pricing, because effectively they had too much milk, and they didn't have customers for it. I was just about to put another 1 million litres of milk on, 300 cows that I'd yet again borrowed more money for from Denmark. I was also the leader, and I felt I needed to act responsibly. How could I ask my members to cut their volume and do the opposite myself? Most of my farming members were in crisis, genuinely in crisis. So I turned to Ray. I found Ray and lean,
and we piloted the Skin of Milk project that you heard us talk about in the hope we could remove waste. We needed to seriously remove cost. So first thing we did when Rory got in, he started to teach us the 5 principles. You've heard them before, I'll not. What I really looked at here was the value one. What does the customer want to pay for? What was I doing in this cumbersome business that my customer was going to pay for? And that was really only the production of milk solids. We had to look at our process and how efficient it was. And this is a big one for farmers. Respect the customer. Dairy farmers in particular, they just want to produce milk. Any amount of it. They don't care at all if a customer wants it or not. They just want to put more on. And we had a discussion at a board meeting yesterday about we're now waiting for more people to get out of pigs so that the price recovers. Because we're not really attending to anything to do with the supply side or demand side. We just hope that when people go bust, and that'll sort it out. So things are still a problem in agriculture. We're not very sophisticated in how we manage our supply chain. Perfection is technical ability, and many of you in here are pig farmers, and I know how technically skilled my brother is, and you are ahead of the game, but don't ever get complacent. So his mate Tim Woods, I guess this is what it does, it defines your current state. So at that time, 2015, we were milking twice a day, we had 1,500 cows, and it's a pastoral dairy system, so they walk to the paddock, just like you would see in New Zealand, and we were walking up to 12k a day. Quite easily, actually, with 500 hectares under paddocks. Your inventory, too much of what you store. I was rearing lots of bull calves at the time. Nothing to do with making milk. I just did it because we'd always rear bull calves, and my father and grandfather liked selling bullocks. Wasn't any money in it. Total waste of time. We had a lifetime of excess assets. All these, we previously did all our own work. Everything from building to making silage. And I had all these assets, and I saw that as an opportunity to get rid of that inventory. People moving about, yeah, milking was taking up to 10 hours. If we started at 3 in the morning, we had two shifts, and we finished at 9 o'clock at night. If the plant broke down, we weren't finished the same day we started. There's no time for anything else. Waiting time, we had 2 main roads going through our farm. So in the spring, when we were tight of grass, you'd have 5 herds of 300, 20 times a day we had to cross the road. We had overproduction. This milk that was going to go for 5 pence a litre. Overprocessing, I didn't really feel that was an issue. We had no cap in our solids. It's a really good contract. The more butter, fat and protein we produce, the more we get paid. Defects, antibiotics, contamination of milk, dirty milk. Again, I didn't feel it was particularly an issue. But if your labour are tired and worn out, then that's going to be much more likely. Skills. This complicated big business needed highly skilled people managers. I was having to bring in people from New Zealand to do the AI because, relatively speaking, there was a lot of, it's a very concentrated period of breeding. We're breeding for 6 weeks, 1,500 cows, and it's the driver of the business. So you need exceptionally skilled people. And I'd just about used up every ancestry visa there was in New Zealand at the time. So it was becoming increasingly difficult to get these people. Other things, I guess, that weren't said at the time, and I probably needed to be. My manager and friend, became a friend of 15 years, had to go back to New Zealand. I was nervous how I'd cope with this. I saw staff churn, and the lack of competent people as a major limiting factor. And I was worn out by having to run this 18 to 21 hour shift and maintaining the Milk Suppliers Association and the other commitments I had. So I needed a fix. And this is, and Ray was in there helping us to find that. We defined the problem statement. It took us quite a while. I think I did throw the toys out the pram. Ray is quite an annoying guy at times. And we really had a bit of a fight. I think I walked out a couple of times. But anyway, it's all important. And it took a while, and we tried to concentrate it down into this, which is that we're not consistently creating enough profit to service the debt, invest in net worth, be in a position to buy the rented land that we have. And of course, there's always the challenge of volatile market and the removal of cap, which is ever more imminent. one of the best process, I guess, was this one. We had everybody in the room. My father was there, my brother, myself, a manager. And we went through the big picture map. This is the current state in 15, and we're looking for these hotspots, the pink things. This is the process, and from what I remember, it was a few years ago, this was the milking process. I think this is young stock, and this is silage. So you can have multiple processes within the same picture. And as you know, there's the input, the things you're buying, the feed, the dairy chemicals, whatever, and they're the people we're buying it from. At this end was the output, the milk, going on the lorry, and then the customer Lactalis. And that helped us find the problem spots, I guess, in a simple way. So then I was making a pitch to my family because I needed consensus that Ray talks about. I had to persuade them that this was a good idea. And I remember I'm going against the curve. Most people want to sell more milk. They want to go to 3 days, 3 times the milking, and they want more output because that's how we solve most problems. It's get more output and dilute the cost. So I want to go against the curve and go once a day. And there was the huge risk of the reduction in volume, but I reckoned I could balance that with the cost saved, and so on. Simplification of system and sustainability over a long period. Build in resilience for the business. So we will milk 1,500 cows once a day. We'll start at 6 a.m. and finish at 5. And I know you pig farmers like to go home at 3 in the afternoon, but that was pretty good for us dairy farmers. It'll be done by 3 people, not 8. We'll move our calving pattern. This is technical stuff, but we'll tighten our calving pattern. We'll be able to do it because it's more fertile. And we'll simplify by reducing the breeding period. We'll still have an extreme milk profile, but the back end won't be as extreme, and also will produce more solids because you concentrate the milk effectively. Cost of production will drop over time, allowing us to compete against the Kiwis. Walking distance staff and parlour output the issue goes away because you half the amount of milking time, you half the time they're standing there. The cows don't have to walk. The parlour is actually milking the number of cows it's probably meant to milk. Medium term, we may be able to carry more cows, another cell. We'll be able to increase output when I get it sorted out. We'll only carry minimum machinery and staff. It'll be very simple, it'll be resilient, and it'll be driven by cost control. So you had to then take that into cash. This gets a bit boring. These numbers won't mean anything to you, so I'll fly through it. But we did cost analysis, benefit analysis. So, we employ this young person. Less volume, this is the cost, less volume sold, so 140 less. We had to hire tractors because we didn't own them. We had to contract some labour in because we got rid of some of the labour. Tyres for the taffy, this is my favourite one. I couldn't stand these guys breaking motorbikes all the time. So I bought a brand new Massey Ferguson 35 and I put flotation tyres on it. And I reckoned that it was harder and wouldn't break down. So I had to buy a set of tyres for it. And I bought an irrigation system, so I didn't need that. We were using slurry tankers and things. So they're the costs. It was going to cost me 173 grand to make this move. I was going to make redundant 3 people. Electricity saved because I do it for half the time. Dairy chemicals, half the amount. Less health and safety, less people. Less PPE, less people. Less vet and med because the cows are much healthier and they genuinely are less stressed because you ask them to do less. Less feed in the parlour. Less other fancy feed. Less other fancy feed. Less tractor repairs. I got rid of them all. And I created a bunch of cash as well in a way by selling machinery. So I had benefits on that side. They keep going, the benefits keep coming in. Less red diesel used, less ATV replacement, repair, money. I rent a house out because I made a guy redundant. Less subscriptions, I seem to find that somewhere. Cows are fatter when they go away because they're not worked as hard. And there were some unsuitable cows. So I've got the benefits up to nearly 300 grand, but also I was saving in silage, I had extra days in milk because the cows were more fertile, and there was gains because the body condition of score of the cow was more easily managed. Various other sundry savings. So at the end of the day, there it was. I could find another 100 grand. In a time that I was going to be losing money, remember. Losing a bunch of it. What really happened? This is the interesting bit for farming. crash, bang, wallop. We suffered a 30% drop in volume, not 15 as planned. Our father died in 16 in the middle of all of this. We had to sort out the final bit of succession I'd been working on for 10 years, which we successfully did. And our volume didn't pick up as we thought, because we'd started halfway through a year. But more importantly, the milk price fell to 16.5 pence from a high of 33.5 the year before. The pig price crashed in the same year. So we embarked on even more severe cost cutting and removing vast amounts of overheads that probably needed removing anyway, but I now had the process to do it. I understand how to look at the business. And we turned an expected cash loss of 400,000 into a cash loss of 70, which I believed was a success. It was exceptional measures, and it wasn't an improvement in technical performance. But had we not learned lean, we may well have been in even deeper dung than we were. So then we get to today. And here's my beautiful farm in the middle of the drought. This was my first cut silage that I was just about to graze because there was nothing else growing. But we now milk 1,300 cows, not 1,500. We do milk them once a day, and we've managed to convert all our land to grazing. But the problem remains. The problem statement hasn't changed. We are in a better position, and we've done some amazing things, but there is a need for constant improvement, and I don't believe yet that we're strong enough. What if it goes back down to 16.5? Or the pig price carries on down to £1 from where it is today? Our single farm payment, we don't really get much relative to our hectares, about 150 grand a year. But if that goes, is 150 grand. What if interest rates goes up? I'm borrowed to the hilt. Half of it's fixed and half of it isn't. It would make a significant difference to my business. What more can we do? So I guess that led me on to Lean 2. And we got support from the Rural Innovation Support Service, which was set up in Scotland. And I'm a very collaborative guy. I started my own co-op, and within that, I started to collaborate with other similar farmers. There's the good, the bad, and ugly. And so we put this fast breeders project together, which was really to look at our genetics. Pig farming, and forgive me if I keep referring to you pig farmers, but you're way ahead of dairy. Pigs and poultry, dairy's lacking so far behind. And I could see that, having the advantage of being a pig farmer. So we put this project together, and I think there's a wee video about it, but we realised we had shared problems. We attended a seminar by the Livestock Improvement Company in New Zealand, a guy from Malcolm Ellis, and he said that New Zealand had faced rapid expansion via serving any animal that stood, and they lifted their profit per hectare but not their production per cow. And I'm listening to this thinking, that sounds similar. They said they had too many tail-end Charlies and too big a variation between the best cow and the worst cow. Exactly the same as ours. And New Zealand couldn't stand any more cows. We were the same. All three of us recognised this problem. So we were already working together in the MSA and our discussion group as well. So what would we do about it? Well, Ellis proclaimed we needed to only breed from our best cows. This is classic Kiwi advice. They always tell you everything that you know. It's not new. Good breeders have been doing it for years, but it takes forever, and I'm not very patient. When would that crisis be coming along? So we said we want to make that improvement in 3 years. The gains are pretty simple. My current average is 280 kilos of milk solids a year. My top cow does 470. So for every 50 kilos of milk solids, we put another £175 per cow in, or £250,000 across the 1,300 cows. So it's pretty transformational. I'll let you watch the video because it's quite interesting. We're trying to solve the age-old problem. We want better cows, and farmers have been breeding better cows for hundreds of years. Being impatient devils that we are, we want to speed that process up. Traditionally, what we've done is bought the best quality semen we possibly could from the company that we thought delivered the genetics that we require for our system of spring block calving. And then we concentrate on fertility and mating as many cows as possible to that bull semen. The RIS project
is quite different. We're going to concentrate on dam improvement. So that's on the cow. We reckon the gains are much, much bigger by improving the cows than simply by bringing in improved bull genetics.
One of the things that we have identified is that we've got a big gap between the poorest performing cow and the best performing cow. So if we can replace the poorer performing cows with better performing heifers, then the benefits will be that we'll have a uniform herd that gets in calve, produces the same amount of milk.
So the risk group are trying to rank the cows based on their phenotype production, which will link back into genetic testing of their offspring. And then from that we can select elite cows to produce our replacements from, on which we will be using sex semen and potentially IVF to produce embryos to put into surrogate dams. So what we are really trying to do is do a weighted ranking system of the cows for the most productive down to the least productive. So from that we can identify the very best cows for our system and produce the replacements from them from a much smaller number of cows than what we're currently doing.
The risk group brings all our thinking together into one place by providing us with a facilitator. It helps somebody pull all our conversations together, somebody to organise our diary, somebody to go out and do the work when we're busy farming, to find the individuals or organisations that need to help us. And that's the key thing. It's keeping it focused. It allows for discussion and collaboration.
Often the challenge with getting people to work together is to develop a common purpose so that everybody's really clear about what they want to achieve. And with this group, that came at the very start. I think the challenge will be actually doing what they want to do as quick as they want to achieve it. The wider you can spread the net, the more networks you can gain, the more innovation you can gain, the more expertise you can bring, and you just get there quicker and faster.
So my bit in terms of quantitative genetics is to enable the group to identify those animals at the top end of their herd that they would want to breed from, and to identify how many offspring we could expect to get from the top animals. The combination of that effort then tells us whether we can concentrate our effort in the top 10 cows or the top 20 cows or the top 50 cows. Once we know that, we can then work out a mechanism by which those top 50 cows, for example, would produce embryos that would go into all the other cows in the herd. And these three farmers have 3,000 cows, so they can put those embryos in the other cows. That will create a generation of calves that are all related to the top 20 or 50 cows. So then my role becomes one of producing a mating program that would keep that progress going over time, but would minimise inbreeding. They had decided to operate their breeding scheme as one nucleus containing about 3,000 cows from 3 separate farms. And now that's quite unusual. Farmers are fairly independent normally, and any one of them would be big enough to run their own breeding program. It became clear that they were very committed to making very rapid genetic improvement, and so were amenable to some of the new technologies that would enable them to do that. I'm not aware of other people doing such a thing, and it's really quite interesting to see the speed with which new innovations are now being applied by very innovative farmers, and in this case some dairy farmers with large herds. And that represents a very good example of the way that the national herd is likely to move in the future.
Having people like Hamish and the geneticists on board just keeps everything on track, keeps us really focused and just makes sure it gets done on time.
It's difficult to get away from the coalface sometimes, and it's also very important for us to not lose sight of the things day to day. So we need to concentrate on getting these cows to calve inside a short window, and if you miss or mix that up, it takes years to recover. So
we have to take responsibility for our own problems and seek the answers out, not wait for somebody to bring them to us. This type of project is what we need to become a thriving, thriving industry. We'll hope to solve a whole lot of problems for the industry as well as for ourselves. If we can make it commercially viable, then it can be copied.
I believe in collaboration, and working with Rory and Graham and firing ideas off each other means that we're actually going to manage to progress this scheme much quicker than we would individually. You know, farms need to be able to make money to reinvest in the environment into their futures as well. And I believe by improving the efficiency of the milk that we produce, our businesses will be much more regenerative in their very nature.
So I guess it's a bit of a story of continual improvement and also of bringing outside people in to look at your business and help you solve problems, where and having that open mind and most importantly being made uncomfortable. Because being made uncomfortable generally makes you think hard about what you're doing, no matter how good you think you are at it. Ray mentioned Lean 3. So what's next? Well, the first questions to ask, because I've done Lean, does my customer actually want more milk? Would a non-exclusive contract, it's a technical dairy thing, allow me to find another customer that does? So at the moment I have an exclusive contract. I can't sell my milk to anybody else. But if I had a bit of flexibility there, maybe I can sell the milk to somebody else. Maybe I can make another product and add value to what I'm doing. Can I go back to twice a day, capture the savings of once a day, jumping the production back up? So jump the production, but keep the cost saving that I made. And that's the question. That's what I'm looking at the moment. But at the same time, does the long-term dairy market warrant further investment? And I think it does. We have 1% of UK people becoming vegan, while 1% of the Chinese people leave veganism and become, what you want to call it, flexitarian, omnivorous. So I think it does stand it. What happens when greenhouse gas is seen as waste by our customer and they don't want us to produce it? As I said before, the need for constant improvement is a reality. And so I'm looking at all these things, and I'm likely to go back to twice a day to jump the production. Anyway, in conclusion, too often, as I said in the video, too often we sit about waiting for the market to save us or some government handout. For too long, there's been a lack of investment in agricultural R&D. To thrive in the future, farmers must change this situation. If you truly believe farming is worth bothering about, and we want to say what it's going to look like, we need to start working together and start creating and delivering the solutions. We need to make better decisions. Straightforward as that. Lean is a good example of the kind of thing that needs to become common practice, and it can breathe life into industry, and it will help us make better decisions. In the end of the day, it can be as argumentative as you want, but you need to make better decisions. So the tools are out there to do it. Open your minds, take it on, and challenge yourself. Any questions? Probably I was rushed through that too quickly, like a farmer. Yeah.
If you're going back to twice a day milking, which means all those cost savings you had, you're going to have to invest in that again. If you're losing staff
and I don't think I will, because I changed my system so fundamentally. I won't go back to twice a day without an investment in infrastructure. I will have to spend money to do it. I would need more milking power, basically. The limiting factor, and this is the real thing about it, we're all faced, especially in family businesses, emotional decisions, priorities for cash. And I just built a £3 million piggery. You know, we'd been buying people out. I'd provided a bunch of cash from creating a very efficient dairy farming system that grew and grew and grew, and I just kept being asked for more cash, so I just pumped on more cows. And, you know, maybe I pumped it too far. You need to adapt. But I will, business in a different place now, and I may well be able to, I'll be able to make that investment and increase the amount of milk and parlour power so that the process is fit for twice a day. So I won't need to go and buy tractors. I won't need any of that stuff. I just need a bit more milking power. And hopefully we can do it with the same amount of people we've got. So careful study has got to be done to make sure that's correct. 38 pence. 38 pence a litre. Yeah, but I'm selling for 42 pence at the moment. In fact, this year, at the moment, I'm losing money.
So you say, obviously, the business is not meeting your demands at the moment. Where do you need it to be to do that?
The true cost of production probably, it's difficult because I'm a solids, but I want to maintain a margin of 10 pence a litre. So let's not talk about cost of production at a certain level, because my system is so far from the standard litre. I need 10 pence margin after everything.
So in terms of your system and your overheads, worked on a similar approach prior to that in New Zealand 15 years ago, and they were running out 23 hours a day. Similar to, a similar graph-based system, and the only extra cost from the outside from Europe was the labour, and they just shift systemed it and just ran it.
Yeah, and I've been and seen the same problems that we have. Their staff problems are horrendous, and I don't want that. Yeah. I've got to be able to do it with few people, a few skilled, loyal people, and I want to build a place where people are inspired to work for me and want to stay working for me. I don't want shifts. I've got other friends in 3 times a day milking the same number of cows and 20 people in the shift and changing minimum of 1 person a month in staff churn.
You talk about an inspiring story. If I'm interpreting what your system is now correctly, you're not going to dairy farm, but if all your farms aren't grazing, presumably you're buying a lot of forage in. So is it the case, or is it an option at least going forward, that you start producing more of your own forage? I'm thinking it's going to dry year this year, you'll probably spend a lot more on forage. Is it the case that you can maybe improve things more by reducing from 15 to 1,300 cows? Is the scope to reduce back to 1,000 and create more efficiencies by feeding them cheap?
Yeah, well, I don't buy any forage and I don't buy any feed. For the last 3 years, I haven't bought any feed at all on the farm. No feed whatsoever. So the system was I wanted to get away from any volatility in the feed market and only to live within what we could do on the farm. But what I will do when I go back to twice a day, because part of the breeding project I talked about, I will go back to 1,000 cows, because I want to take out the bottom third, because I reckon there's waste in there. There's too many tail end Charlies, so I'll take them out. And then that'll take a lot of poor producers out, basically, and so I'll have 1,000 cows and twice a day doing 5.5 million litres and rebuild again. And there is potential to put another 400 cows on. I can do it at the moment. So I've got enough, very lucky position to have enough land to be able to do that. Overhead dilution is my biggest issue. Really, I'm a pretty good technical farmer, but I've got overheads and they're difficult to meet. But once a day was right for us at the time. We couldn't. We had to sort a problem, and I understand what my customer needed, and we did that. No, what's the point? None at all. I've been learning all the time. There are no such things as mistakes, only opportunities to learn. It's not been easy, right enough. You wouldn't want to be my wife. But yeah, I mean, it's pretty amazing. My brother's pumping out 36.1 pigs a sow. Pig units flying. It's got a 20 pence a kilo debt charge on it, which is challenging, and it needs a good dairy business to support it until that debt gets down a bit. But that's what we do as farmers and as family as well. It's a balanced business. Well, you must have some questions. I didn't drive 600 miles to not have any.
How concerned are you about environmental change from especially on your dairy side? Because on the pig side, we are heavily regulated on things like PPC and stuff. I think that will cause the need for change for you on the dairy side in the future.
I think I'm pretty concerned about it. I mean, one of the reasons we closed the piggery is because of IPPC. We were in the threshold, and we're going to have to spend a whole bunch of money in the pig unit to meet legislation that wasn't ever going to add any value. On the dairy side, greenhouse gas and methane, you'll hear plenty of talk of that as a problem. But the real problem is farmers' messaging and the understanding of how the carbon cycle works. I mean, nobody's up there saying that methane has got a half-life. It's much less than carbon. Disappears, carbon still hanging about. But the bigger thing is we are so poor at messaging all the positive things that we do. Sequestration of grass. The American prairies are sequestrating 4 times as much carbon as the Amazon rainforest. My farm's covered in grass. I am a carbon sink. I'm not getting any credit for it. Every windmill, well, I'll argue about biomass, but every windmill and every solar panel that's put out there, the farmer is not getting the credit to balance the negativity of his carbon output, let's call it. It's a huge problem in the accounting system for carbon. And farmers need to waken up and ask their representative bodies to sort it out. And so there's a really positive story to tell about what we do as farmers and how efficient we are. I mean, daily live weight gain in pigs, you know, if your feed conversion just goes that 1 point better, then you need to get credit for that, because that means you're producing more efficiently and you're having less negative impact on the environment. But nobody's saying that. Nobody's saying it loud enough and in an eloquent enough way to deal with George Monibot in The Guardian and people like that.
I suppose the only thing that, looking at what we've learned today, is that the sort of march of progress in terms of how big farms are getting. If I take it back to pigs, I think in Holland, every 7 years, the number of farmers halve and the size of the farm doubles. And when you start to look around the country and you see lots of little dairy farms and stuff, and you're like, actually, in terms of the market progress, these guys shouldn't be here, and they're sort of artificially still here, if that makes sense.
I think you can say that about everyone, everyone.
Absolutely. The point is that we need to be more, you know, to look at your mission statement, to be able to actually have a sustainable business that can reinvest and grow and everything else.
It's a slow death, basically, because many times people have capital value, and you will find people moaning about the milk price or the pig price. When you get into their business, you find they've got overdraft of 10,000 quid and a land value of 2 million, but they're walking about with their chin hitting the ground. So it's because people don't understand their business, they don't have metrics, and they need to have. And pig farmers, let's not give you an easy thing, guys. How many are arable farming as well as pig farming? And how many of you are hiding in that? How good would your pig farm be in a time of high feed price if you had to buy the bloody stuff? You know, you're hiding in the system of arable. They're making it okay, corn into horn. But so no, we need to challenge ourselves and make each enterprise stand alone or bring benefit, and add value. You know, add value. And the guys, those that stick ahead, they do nothing. Well, yeah, they'll take a while to shift, and they cause all the rest of us a problem because they're producing below the cost of production, which means the rest of us are always having to subsidise them, whatever the system.
There's a line to be drawn between specialising and being diverse in terms of enterprises. And clearly you specialise in two specific areas, which kind of gets over the traditional family herd of responsibility by presumably rural dairy and dealing with pigs. It avoids a lot of fallout, I suppose. You're quite relying on those two sectors, aren't you? I think if you think people are hiding behind the profitability of arable and ignoring the pigs, you view profitability of arable as maybe a little bit out of date. Because arable hasn't been that lucrative for some consistent time. We have a lot of enterprises now with not massive degree of specialisation. And it's always a bit of a wrestle. Do you take that one out? And by taking that enterprise out, increasing something else, do you increase your risk?
The thing, you're hitting a couple of good topics there about responsibilities. I'm a great believer in governance and structure within the business. So Gregor, yeah, he looks after pigs and I look after dairy. And I suppose I've performed the role of managing director. We meet once a month as a board. We have an outside guy that comes in and helps facilitate the conversations, and now our wives, and that's difficult at times, are coming to the board meeting as well. Makes us behave better. But, you know, you have that governance and you have the discussion and you review. You look at the risk that you're talking about and you have, annual review or whatever it needs to be, whole farm review, to look and see what are we doing and is it right for us? And you know, I had to get. I've been talking about this move back to twice a day or the need to do something more to the business, whether it be find another enterprise, whatever, for some time. And I had to go to my family and ask them, basically, make a case. I had to make a business case to my sister-in-law, you know, that this is the right thing for us to do. And in the past, you know, it would just been a bit of a round, throw the toys out the pram, and the money would have been spent. But what a better way to, you know, to really have to be, if you can try and make it so much like any other business where you take the emotion out and just deal with the people at the other side of the table as if you've got to justify what your existence or your desires. So governance, yeah, and just review what you're doing.
I guess the question you ask yourself, if you agree, is you look at yourself and look at the bank. You spoke with Wyatt about borrowings. And I guess you're similar age to me. You think about years forward and succession. How far do we need to get before I'm clear of that? Chris, that's what we thought sometimes.
It'll probably be 20 years. But maybe not. Hey, if we get it right, it might happen quite quickly. I did clear the debt. Greg and I cleared the debt by 2011. And we had a significant amount due to the business going totally wrong. And we actually got to near 0 point before we built that piggery. And then we really did go into bollocks. And spent a bunch of money on dairy as well, because the way I'd done the dairy, it had been very, very little capital investment. I was outwintering everything, and it relied upon. When I came home in '95, I was sent to start 55 men in the morning, and now I see 2. So you can see the level of change I put in place. I had this reducing staff. I knew I had to take it down, and I was rationalising. It's difficult to knock the castle down and rebuild it, because it's difficult to shift the historic cost and the cultures, the ego of such a business. You know, we're one of the most successful agricultural businesses in the country, and so it's got an ego. You know, Rory does things, and I was the young, arrogant whippersnapper that came in and needed to shift and create the change. And so anyway, I used all these assets, all these depreciated assets and depreciated staff to outwinter animals and run about with tractors and do all sorts of stuff without spending any capital. But it got so that it was becoming logistically, you know, because I was gradually getting rid of people. It became logistically very difficult as the numbers got much bigger, and I had to eventually spend some money to bring it, to make it sustainable. I couldn't keep running as fast as I was. So when you start to spend the money, that's when you really find out if you're any good. That'll be challenging, yeah. Well, I've got half of it fixed, and I'm just about to fix the rest. I'm in a bit of a panic about getting it done before our country implodes even further. Well,
You're going to implement the lean on your pig farm too.
Well, that's funny you should say that. We haven't done that yet, but we should be, yeah. Yeah. Well, I have to talk to my brother about that. That's he is a pig farmer, and he is. There's only him and one other man, and yeah.
It's probably.
He doesn't have 95% waste.
I don't. Well, we know our cost of production, and we have the structure in place to review and assess. So, but no, you know, it would be good to do it. So I'll need to see if I can use my best powers of persuasion to make him consider it. Okay, guys, thank you for listening to me.